Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa alihi wa zawajih zurriyati ajmain. Okay, we are here. Borrowing language from Marx, Harvey notes that the spiraling that amplifies the madness of economic reason. What is the essential madness? I don't know about Harvey, but I'll say what I think the basic madness of economic reason. The basic madness of economic reason and madness of economic reason. So the basic madness is this, and by economic reason, at least how I understand capitalist rationality. Because economics rationality. Because the love of money, which is traditionally called greed, I guess, greed and covetousness or jealousy, can take two types. One is you love money, for example. Money is the symbol of this love, or epitome or culmination of this love, or the symbol of that love, whatever you want to call it. Money. You love money, for example, because you want to enjoy things. Have easy life, have all the pleasures in the world. So this is greed as well, but it's not really capitalist greed. You love money in order to do something which you want to do, and you are still greedy because you don't realize that there's a limit to what you can actually do and what you can consume, etc. But then there's a love of money for its own sake. And like in our tradition, for example, Muhammad Maulud Rahmatullah alayhi Shankiti, in his classic poem, Matharat al-Kulub, makes this distinction, and you will see that in the Quran throughout. There's the one person who loves the world and the money because he wants to enjoy the pleasures of the life, and he becomes greedy in that way. But even that greed has limits, but limitless greed. So that's why that's not a capitalist rationality. That's not the madness of economic reason. The madness of economic reason is when you love money for its own sake, and that's what Quran say. Allazi, the person who jama malan, accumulate the money and wealth for its own sake, because wa'addada, what he does, he keep counting it to see how much it has risen since the last time, or how much it has grown. since the last time. So the madness of capitalist reason is that it is the love of money or the accumulation of money for its own sake. So that's real madness, an obvious madness. So borrowing the language from Marx, Harvey notes that the spiraling debt amplifies the madness of economic reason. So not all debts are in that category. So there are types of debts. There is the household debt. A lot of people can't live without debt these days. So that's the compulsion, capitalist compulsion, the system, the shackles of the system. So the borrowing language from Marx, however, Harvey notes that the spiraling debt amplifies the madness of economic reason. So he needs to specify. Actually, that's one of the weaknesses of his account, which sort of we noted yesterday, but let's mention it a bit more clearly. Is the types of debt. Well, I think I miss all that. Okay, I think I will go through it again because it's. Let's see. So what I was saying is that there are different types of debt, and as we saw, the major distinction between that is there are self-liquidating debt, and these are the debt related to lending and borrowing, and that can further be divided into household debt, national debt, and also commercial debt, etc. But then there's another debt, more important debt, which is non-self liquidating debt, and that debt is totally different from the self-liquidating debt. And the function of this debt is to create money. And most money in today's world is there to create money out of thin air. That's why Susan Strange, who is an economist, she calls it mad money. Because nobody knows how much money we have really. Because we don't know how much debt we had, so it's a spiraling debt. But it's not just a spiraling debt, spiraling money as well. And this debt is creating money, and in capitalist term, it is also creating value. But since Harvey doesn't really make a good distinction between these two types, his account seems to be focused on this type of debt, self-liquidating debt, which is a problem obviously, but it's a problem which is subservient to the main problem, which is the debt whose sole function is to create money really. And what you do with that money, you lend or whatever, that's something else. But when we talk about a spiraling debt, we also talk about a spiraling money. We should, and when we talk about madness of economic reason in relation to lending and borrowing debt, the real madness is madness of money, mad money, And capitalist is the person who is, mad in love of money for its own sake, and the system which is mad in love of money for its own sake. So it's the madness of money as well, and man, yeah. Okay, so Harvey notes that the spiraling debt amplifies the madness of economic reason and intensifies the crisis tendencies that can only culminate in devaluation and destruction. Devaluation of what? But as I said, if the system is not collapsed and it's able to regenerate itself, then that would be the part of the game, not something to worry about really, except by the Marxists. Building on his argument, in The Roots of Financial Crisis, probably we should read this. Harvey explains that these tendencies have produced recurring boom-bust cycles in the 1970s. The 2008 financial crisis, for instance, was produced by the flow of credit into the US housing market after the crash of the dot-com bubble in 90s, I guess. But again, originating in the United States, the crisis spread to China, where millions of workers faced unemployment. In response, the Chinese government carried out massive credit finance infrastructure projects. So into production, similar to projects undertaken by the United States after World War II and France after 1848. But China's vast consumption of cement after 2008 demonstrated that the spiral of debt financing has reached an unprecedented scale, and Harvey predicts that the future crisis will be even more severe. And people have been predicting this for a long, long time. Well, if you don't get the distinction between types of debt right, then the predictions are not going to be that correct. The only hope, he argues, is to quickly and deliberately dismantle the Taro debt. How you are going to dismantle it? You can't dismantle it without dismantling capitalist money, really. And first step toward that would be the financialization of all banks and all that. That threatens our collective future. So his future, he's a Marxist, but his future seems to be linked to the future of capitalism. Should we stop? I think we stop here. And well, next time we'll do from Harvey also introduce the theory of regional value regimes. So it's a bit different. Okay.